What's up, guys? Nate, the old school Otaku here, and I believe it is time for part 3 of the... What fun times do we have ahead of us here? Actually just fixed a problem with my server where it wasn't doing its rsync backups like it was supposed to, so now it's doing it, so yay!
Perfect stuff and fixing stuff. Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, I'm getting really sick of hearing the clicking of the hard drives back here as systems work. This section of the project seemed to have taken a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but yeah, well... Can you see the pain in my face? My eyes need watering really bad. Fixing problems I didn't realize were there. That means project files haven't been getting backed up for a couple of weeks. Joy. Yeah, I guess the question is, do I want to go ahead and sign off now? Server project. So check out what I'm going to be doing next. Stay tuned. And welcome back. So, like I said, it is time for part 3 of this epic server build series that I've got going on here. Part 1, we talked about the overall design goals and the issues and what the new server was designed to resolve. Part 2, we installed quite a few of the upgrades to the server. We installed the RAM, we installed the new graphics card, we installed the new quiet power supply units, and was waiting on some of the other upgrades to come in, and that is what part 3 is. So this is a combination of finishing the general upgrades to the server chassis, which is to say, the one major part is, well, yeah, the power supplies have been replaced, so they're no longer really loud. Unfortunately, the 80 millimeter high airflow fans that typically come with these types of servers are generally really loud especially when they're ramping up to full speed. And if the system's going to work, it's potentially going to happen quite frequently. So obviously the next step is to replace those fans with quieter fans. So the plan is to replace the two 80 millimeter fans in the back of the chassis with 80 millimeter Noctua fans designed for that style, and then going to rip out the whole entire fan wall that has the three 80 millimeter fans in it. Going to take that whole wall out. It's actually removable, which is nice. And then that space is actually a perfect space to fit 3 120 millimeter Noctua fans. So, part of the thing is Noctua fans tend to be really, really quiet, but still move a lot of air. So that's what I got going on there. I'm going to be using zip ties and a few other things to get it all connected together and whatnot. And so that is the plan, is to go ahead and do that. And then while we're in the case, going to do a couple more things in order to get it ready. I purchased 2 Seagate 8 terabyte enterprise drives. These are the top of the line Seagate Enterprise style drives. Come with a nice fat warranty on them. I believe 5-year warranty, and they're designed to operate 24/7. They're designed to operate in a server like this where all the drives can be spinning at once. They're designed to handle the fluctuations and the vibrations of all the hard drives, and that makes them more reliable. And my plan is to actually replace my 2 Excuse me. So my plan is to replace the 2 parity drives that are currently in my Unraid server right now with these 2 enterprise center drives. And part of the thing is I want to make sure that the parity, which is kind of my backup, it's not a true backup, but it's what protects me from losing data if one of the other drives were to go down. I want to make sure that my 2 drives worth of parity are going to be as reliable as they can. That way I can use slightly less reliable drives for the major storage and get away with saving money that way. So that's one of the reasons why I can get away with using drives like this. And this is also a drive that's going to be going into the new server as well. I had another one of these 8 terabytes that is already in there and is one of the replacement drives in this machine. I actually have one of my parity drives is technically bad in this server right now, or at least it failed some of the post tests. Now, it may be able to be revived and fixed and working again, and I may wind up just turning that into a cheap storage drive or something like that. It is an older drive that came out of one of the Seagate external enclosures, so there is that. It's not necessarily a grand drive or whatnot, but the idea is to do that. And then I purchased a couple of other pieces that are designed to actually go into the side of the case in order for me to mount either a couple 3.5-inch drives or a few SSDs. And the plan is to actually mount those along the wall with the power supply, where the power supply section is, and that'll allow me to plug up my other SSDs. So in this machine, I have 3 SSDs, 3 1 terabyte SSDs that are currently being utilized as the cache for this system to help speed it up. So the plan is I want all 3 of those in this new machine, but I also want to add the 500 gig SSD I currently have to that machine as well to use as another type of fast tier storage. Maybe that will become my permanent Plex data drive, as it were, because Plex has a tendency to like being on its own specific drive and not really part of the main array or any of that type of stuff. So it's kind of a little bit complicated the way getting Plex to work properly in Docker and on an Unraid server. Is kind of interesting how that goes. So there's quite a few different updates I want to do to the machine. Install the Molex to SSD cables that I got and a few other things. And then, of course, I have a few of these older drives sitting in drive cages and whatnot that aren't necessarily bad, but they're not great. And I have a few extra slots in that machine, and I want to put it through some testing. So my plan is to install all of these extra drives that I have into that machine and do tests. I'm actually going to load up a evaluation copy of Unraid, get it configured, and later on do some burn-in testing with the drives to make sure that they're okay and whatnot. That way I can put them into use here once I actually transfer everything over. So there's a bunch of other stuff, and basically, there's a lot of work still needing to happen, and that's why there's probably going to be a few more videos. But this video, essentially, I want to focus on getting the fans replaced, getting the hardware and stuff in there so I can start actually utilizing it and doing all of the prep work and things. And so while I'm doing some of these testing and prep works and other things like that, I'll probably do some videos there as well, show you guys around the IPMI of the machine and what setting up a default Unraid environment kind of looks like and things like that. So I want to take you along with that as well. But in the meantime, I think I think I've talked enough. So let's get back over to the desk, the table, and see what we can do about installing some fans, shall we? And welcome back. So, like I said, next up is fan replacement time. So I've got a total of 5 fans in here. There are 2 of these 80 millimeter fans here on the back. And then we have 3 of them here in this center wall. It should really be a lot easier to come out. I don't know why these don't want to come out, but I have 3 of these. So it looks like at least in the rear, at least in the center here, these are 80 millimeter Nidec Ultra Flow fans. And in the rear of this case, we have these 80 millimeter San Ace fans. Now, I think originally the Ultra Flow fans were what originally came in this machine, and these San ones might be replacements, or technically the Ultra Flows are here because these are designed to push the most amount of air, whereas here in the back, it's not really designed to push as much air, so why they have these smaller fans. And there is definitely a difference in the size of these two. These ones in the back are definitely smaller than these in the mid chassis area. I really would like this one to come out. There we go. Now, the one thing about this replacement is that in order to get all of this work, and like I said, in the rear, we can replace these with these 80 millimeter Noctua Redux fans. These are 180 or 1800 PWM fans, and that will replace these San Aces. While we can do that, we can reuse these caddies for that purpose. Unfortunately, in order to replace these three fans here in this fan wall, and also to be able to do so with a replacement fan that's going to be able to pump at least as much, or hopefully close to as much airflow, we actually have to move up to 120 millimeter Noctua fans. And so what I have here, I have the Industrial PPC Noctua NF-F12 Industrial PPC 3000 PWM. So all of these fans are PWM, so they're pulse width modulation in order to control these. So they're all 4-pin PWMs. This spins at 3,000 RPMs in order to get this. And these tend to be, even though they do spin so fast, they tend to be considerably quiet. And now to just kind of remind you of what this is like if this is fully running. I've got it plugged in, so let's go ahead and turn her on one last time. Now, it's not very loud right now. Though the fan on the power supply is running, it's not very loud, to be honest, so it's not that big of a deal. But let's go ahead and start installing these fans back. You can definitely tell it is considerably louder than it probably could be, or we would hope it to be. And the fans aren't even fully ramped up yet. They are still definitely waiting to do that, and we can try and push them a little here. Let's load up Windows 10, shall we? Yeah, let's go 64-bit setup. And we'll kind of see how the fans operate. I mean, it is pushing a considerable amount of heat, or airflow, actually. All of these fans definitely are. So, starting to ramp up. So yeah, it's definitely getting up there. Now I don't have any drives or anything installed, so I'm not gonna be able to actually go through the full setup process, but you know, kind of get an idea of, okay, this is what it kind of sounds like. And so now go ahead and we'll shut her down, and then we will go with the drive replacements and see where we're at there. So let's go ahead and do that, shall we? There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and get these fans removed. These fans are really easy to remove. This one here does not want to come out of its caddy at all. I was actually a little afraid putting it back in with how difficult it was. Now, in order to actually put these fans in here, I have to remove all of these. And this whole centerpiece here can actually be removed. There is a number of screws that are actually holding it in place, and he actually had to remove these fans in order to make room for that. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that I can see, and there may be a couple more that are technically holding it in. I think maybe these two back here are holding it to this piece. So let's get started trying to remove these. Okay, think that got it. Go ahead and speed this up. Y'all don't need to necessarily see this. Yeah, on top of these, they're actually these pulse width modulator clips that we don't need because we're going to utilize our own fan headers. Unfortunately, we can't utilize these quick connect headers at all. So these have to be replaced, which is fine. Take these things out, so we don't need them anymore. And then we need to do the same for the fans back here. Go. Whole entire fan cage is now removed, and now I have a place to technically store these 3 fans for the time being. So unfortunately, while these quick connect caddies are really nice, can't really use them unfortunately, because, well, they go into this cage, and this cage is just not usable. Though this does have this cool feature of this bracket here. This is actually meant to hold either cables or for long cards to slot into that cage, into these slots here, and help hold the cards up. That is part of what this is designed for, but yeah, it's not needed, so just goes off to the side. Now, with this exposed, we now have a lot of room here, and like we said, there's room for me to essentially sit 3 120mm fans next to each other, almost perfectly. And now, granted, these boxes are wider, so I need to get the actual fans out. But before I do that, I want to work on these fans next. So these will allow me, I can actually utilize these small replacements from Noctua. So, little tiny fan in here, comes in a nice cool plastic carrying case with some extra screws here, which may or may not be useful. Don't know yet. And then we'll pull this one out, because I may just be able to reuse the screws that came with this. I guess the upstairs neighbor's getting restless. Okay, so here is our Noctua fan, and there's a little thing on here that says the side with this is the with the label. So the label side is where fan flow goes. So fan flow is going to go this way, which means if this gets installed, then it gets installed like this. Yep. So I want fan facing it, or label facing out like it is on these already. So that is the plan. Let's go ahead and unscrew these. And go ahead and decouple this fan from its cage. And these look like basically the exact same type of screws that came with this originally, so I probably don't need to reuse it. Okay, there we go. There's that, and then I need to unfasten this side piece so I can get this out. It is held in here by, I think, this little tab. Or not. Oh, the other guys make this seem so easy. And admittedly, it is. I know they make this so that it can be easily repaired and removed. Just figuring out what needs to happen to be able to do that is all. Unfortunately, I think in getting it, I effectively broke the connector. But, and again, I'm not planning on reusing these for that specific purpose. So, I suppose it's fine. So let's go ahead and remove the fan from this side as well. All right. There we go. 2 fans gone. And now 2 fans to add to the environment. So, like we said, we know that this goes in like this, or yeah, like this. And that means that airflow goes this way. So we want to basically install this in here like this. Okay. That's how we want it to go. So the other side is wanting to route through this side hole anyways. Let's go ahead and do that. And then here we go. We go ahead and reinstall these screws. And I think we should be in business. Not. I am going to use the Noctua provided screws because it's probably for the best than to try and reuse the old screws. So let's do that, shall we? Yeah, it seemed to go in considerably better than the other screw. Make sure this is in here nice and good. Okay. All right. So there we go. That is 1 fan down, and we go ahead and flip that in here. Utilize this lovely provided PWM, or this lovely provided fan mount, and there we go. So, I guess let's finish up this second one, and then we will fire her up and see how she sounds. go. Okay. Let's go ahead and power her up. And now that we have the fans, replacement fans in here, let's go ahead and power her up and see what happens. Well, it is considerably quieter. I actually can't hear these fans. But what I can see is it looks like I may have actually put this second one on backwards. So, time to fix that. So next up is to get these fans situated. Now there's probably going to be some minor work that's still going to need to happen. I think I'm going to need to use some double-sided tape and some other things in order to get this going, but for now all I really have is zip ties. But zip ties is actually what's needed to get these connected. So, comes in this cool box. You get your fan. Once again, 4 screws, which I do not need. But there's our Noctua fan. It's nothing fancy, and it really doesn't have to be. That's the whole entire point. I mean, this is a server, and you ain't gonna see the inside of this thing. Once it's built, it is designed to not be seen. I mean, you really need to keep the cover on to maximize the airflow going from the front of the case all the way to the rear. So the whole idea of opening up the case so that you can look inside it is kind of silly. This isn't meant to be pretty, and that's okay. We can do other things to make a build pretty. Don't have to don't have to make a server like this pretty. Not a requirement. Okay, so thing is here is we want to make sure these are all orientated the same way. So once again, it looks like the fan blows in the direction of the label. So I want to make sure I put all of these together on the label side, and I also want to make sure they're orientated similarly as far as where the fan header is coming out. So I believe this is the orientation I'm going to be looking for, essentially. It's like this. So we can kind of see now that I've got these out, I can kind of put these in side by side, and they effectively squeeze in here together. There's a little bit of slight difference, and that's actually in this little outcropping here, and I seem to remember that that is something that needed to be removed. So I do have a Dremel, but the problem with using a Dremel is, well, you're going to get dust and debris everywhere. So next best thing is to take a screwdriver, a pair of pliers, and apply pressure at specific points, and basically you want to kind of rock it back and forth so that it will come apart. If I knock it down far enough, that may be able to do it. Let's see. Let's see. Yep. I think that should be good enough. Okay. So then, next up is tying these bad boys together. Now, a lot of times people tell you not to use twist ties when you're doing builds and things with computers, but sometimes a twist tie just makes sense. So basically what we want to do is you want to tie these together in such a way where they're effectively looped onto each other. Now I guess the question is, can I tie them with one? Or did I get something that's not technically long enough and I have to do one side at a time, which I may go ahead and double up on anyways. Let's see. Nope, okay. It's going to have to be one side at a time. That's fine. I can make that work. So they connect up basically like this. So loop in one side and then do the other side. Goes in this direction. Go ahead and install it. So it's a little tight, at least as far as where can I go? Man, thinking about this, I do not care about the chassis intrusion alarm. Now that I think about it, it's this little thing here. Basically tells you whether or not somebody has broken into the chassis, which is an okay thing in a data center setting. These chassis intrusion alarms are pretty neat, and lets you know when somebody has gotten into the chassis and potentially done something to it. But I don't need it, so I'm going to just go ahead and remove it. One less thing to worry about, and that also now frees up a little bit more space. Now there's a little bit of wiggle room still here, which I can actually fix by getting some foam tape or something like that, and I can definitely fix this problem like that. That's simple enough to do. And on top of that, yeah, we're pretty ready, I think, to go ahead and see about installing these fans and giving her a test. All right, I have replaced the fans with Noctuas. Let's give her a shot. That is honestly not bad at all. That is really cool. And for something that was, relatively simple-ish fix, it is considerably quieter. I mean, admittedly, the fans are not operating very heavy right now because they're designed to ramp up and whatnot, I'm sure, based off of a lot of different factors, presumably one of them being temperature of the CPUs and how hot and how much work the CPUs are doing. That just spun up considerably. So that's the fans operating at full capacity. The CPUs were definitely getting warm there. The one thing is, even though, yeah, these are ramping up to like 100%, and I can affect the fan curves, and that's one of the things I'm going to need to do, actually, is work on the fan curves and everything. So it's just doing its basic stuff right now. Probably run the fans a little bit higher than normal most of the time to help with that. But I mean, this is cooling the system down pretty quickly, even with it going, and overall really not making a ton of noise. It's just unfortunately not directing the air exactly where we want the air to go. Now, I could potentially print some type of 3D print thing similar to how this is designed in order to help direct that airflow over the CPU coolers. That is something I can definitely do. Another thing I could potentially do is get new CPU coolers. They probably have aftermarket coolers that are designed for these types of CPU sockets that I may be able to potentially purchase and replace later to help with some of this. But for now, I think this should do a pretty good job. And once I get the top down and the fan curves adjusted, it shouldn't be quite as quite as crazy. But as of right now, I'm not going to want to be able to sleep, or I'm not going to want to even attempt to sleep with this thing running like this. At least not with the way the fan curves currently are. But we can kind of see what the noise floor looks like right now, and it's definitely better. And while yes, these fans are relatively loud, they're not quite as loud when they ramp up, so that's definitely a plus. And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to have to stop for tonight. This isn't exactly where I wanted to go ahead and stop this video, but I think this is the proper point to stop because there's some more troubleshooting and things I'm going to have to do in order to get this finalized. I need to work on the fan curves and some of the other stuff, and it's just a little too long to try and get done all tonight and all within this session before I should get this video up for y'all to view. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this one quits. But I mean, for the main part, I got the major stuff done that I wanted to get done. I replaced the fan wall. I replaced these back fans. I've tested them. They are all working. Everything is looking good. It's just a little loud when it ramps up because the CPUs are working a little bit harder than they probably should. There's not as much airflow coming through them, unfortunately, right now. And so it's having to ramp up considerably. So I need to work on those fan curves and get it more in line with what I want. But that is for another time. Thank you guys for tuning in. This one is, in some regards, probably going to be shorter than the other ones and with not necessarily as much overall done. But I mean, I removed the center wall. I removed the intrusion sensor, replaced the fans, got all that hooked up and everything. It's a pretty good amount of progress, I think. So, if this is your first time tuning in to my videos, thank you for sticking with me to this point. This is not necessarily the typical type of content that I usually have on this channel. Usually I deal with anime, old school media, the wall behind me. But from time to time, I like to branch out into tech and do things because this is something that I do for a living and is a passion of mine. And this server replacement project is a passion project and also a much needed project. So if you're wanting to see the other past two videos, if somehow you didn't watch those first, you can go ahead and check for that within the... I've got a playlist set up for this, so it'll allow you to easily go through and check that out, as well as other computer builds if you want to check those out, or if you want to check out the rest of my other content, I encourage you to check out my channel, view a few of those videos, and of course there will be a couple of suggestions in the end cards as well. If this is, one of your first times looking in, you want to see more of my content and want to keep seeing more of my content, I encourage you to go ahead and hit subscribe. It will put you front row and center whenever I release something new, as the video should show up in your feed. Hit the bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I release something new. If you've got questions, you got concerns, or comments that you want to give me about the computer build and other things like that, go ahead and hit me up in the comments section below. I do read every comment and attempt to respond if I'm able, so feel free to go ahead and interact with me there. Or you can interact with me on Twitter, on Facebook, on Tumblr. All my social media links are in the description below, as well as a link to my website where you can see more of this type of content. as well. So I encourage you to go check out all of those things and like, subscribe, share it out. Tell your friends about these builds if they might be something that they might want to get into or watch. So feel free to go ahead and do that. And I encourage and I appreciate each and every single one of you. So thanks for tuning in. I am Nate, the old school otaku, signing off. Oh, this video didn't quite go as planned. What else is new? Nothing ever goes as planned. Nothing ever goes as planned. As planned is not the way it goes. Kind of like these drives.